Who could have imagined that the 2025 Ballon d'Or, lifted by Ousmane Dembélé, would have behind it a shadow as powerful as Lionel Messi's? The question seems simple, but it hides a twist that few expected. The Argentine star, the same one who so many times was the absolute protagonist of these awards, ended up being the voter who pushed the Frenchman to the top. And the most surprising thing is not the vote itself, but the way Dembélé turned it into a public tribute, almost a confession of eternal debt to the man who marked his career. Because if football has taught us anything, it's that the greatest stories are not always written on the pitch, but in those quiet gestures that reveal who is who. Dembélé, who for years was pointed out for his inconsistency, his physical fragility, and even his lack of discipline, now speaks with the calm of someone who went through the fire and came out stronger. And in every word, Messi appears, as if the Argentine had been the invisible architect of that transformation. It is no coincidence that when receiving his trophies, the Frenchman said that a large part of his maturity is due to the advice of his former teammate at Barcelona. How strong does a player's influence have to be for another, in his moment of glory, to stop and publicly thank him? The irony is obvious. While many thought Messi had nothing left to teach, it turns out he is still shaping careers even from a distance. Dembélé called him the greatest player in history, and he did so without hesitation, like someone who knows that statement leaves no room for debate. And of course, anyone who has seen the Argentine invent the false nine role understands why the Frenchman still tries to replicate those movements, even though he knows Messi's perfection is unattainable. It's like trying to copy the signature of a genius. You can get close, but you can never make it identical. The most human part of all is the personal bond. Dembélé revealed that the first congratulatory message he received after winning the Ballon d'Or was from Messi. Not from an executive, not from a sponsor, not from a national team teammate, but from the man who accompanied him through his most turbulent years and who now recognizes him as the best in the world. Isn't that a perfect symbol of how football can be a bridge between generations, between styles, between cultures? Let's recap. Messi votes for Dembélé in the best, Dembélé wins, and instead of using the moment to talk about himself, he turns it into a tribute to the Argentine. It's a circle that closes elegantly, like a short passing move that ends in a goal. And here, another inevitable question arises. How many elite players dare to publicly acknowledge that their success is not theirs alone, but also belongs to those who guided them? The reflection is unavoidable, but without losing momentum. What we see in this story is the confirmation that Messi is not only an idol for what he did on the pitch, but for what he continues to generate off it. His legacy is not measured solely in titles, but in the way other players take him as a reference, even when they no longer share a locker room. And in a football world increasingly marked by oversized egos, hearing Dembélé speak with gratitude and humility is almost a revolutionary act. Bridge phrases like this remind us that football is more than statistics and trophies. It is memory, it is influence, it is respect. And when a champion of the present bows to an eternal champion, what is created is a narrative that goes beyond the result of a match. Messi, with a simple vote and a congratulatory message, reaffirmed that his role as a mentor is still alive. Dembélé, with his gratitude, showed that greatness is also measured by the ability to recognize those who helped you grow. But there is an even deeper angle to this story, one that has nothing to do with votes or awards, but with how authority is built in modern football. Because Messi no longer needs to lift a trophy to influence. His weight today is not on the stage, it is in his judgment. And that, paradoxically, makes him even more powerful. For years, the Ballon d'Or seemed like an award that measured individual performance. Today, without saying it explicitly, it also measures legitimacy. Who validates whom? Who recognizes whom as part of the elite? And in that context, Messi placing Dembélé at the very top is not just a vote, it is a signal, a way of saying this player belongs. And when that signal comes from the most influential footballer of the last 20 years, its symbolic value multiplies. Because let's think about it calmly. Dembélé didn't need Messi's praise to win. He already had the numbers, the titles, and a great year. But the Argentine's recognition changes the narrative. It takes him out of the place of the redeemed, irregular talent and puts him on another level. that of a footballer validated by someone who saw everything, won everything, and understood the game like few others. It's not marketing, it's football hierarchy. And here, an inevitable comparison appears. Many champions of the past chose to disappear from the story. Messi, on the other hand, continues to participate, but without imposing himself. He doesn't lecture, he doesn't give grand speeches, he doesn't seek the spotlight. He influences from the smallest gesture, a vote, a private message, a precise phrase. And that, in a football world saturated with noise, becomes a different way of leading. There is also something interesting on Dembélé's side. In a world where most people use success to talk about themselves, he chose to look back, recognize processes, admit that he didn't get there alone. And that doesn't make him weaker, it makes him stronger. Because accepting influence is not taking away merit, it is understanding that high performance is also built with role models. And Messi was one of those role models for him when hardly anyone fully believed. These kinds of gestures also say something about the moment football is living through. New generations no longer look for untouchable idols, they look for guides. And Messi, without meaning to, occupies that place. Not as the one who orders, but as the one who accompanies. Not as the one who demands, but as the one who observes and recognizes when someone deserves to be there. And perhaps that is where the magic of this story lies, in the way it reminds us that football is not a succession of reigns that cancel each other out, but a chain of gestures that link together. Messi didn't need to lift another trophy to reaffirm his place, because his influence is measured by the mark he leaves on those around him. Dembélé, by acknowledging him, shows us that greatness is not a solitary pedestal, but a bridge extended toward the future. Imagine the scene a few years from now, when someone looks back at the list of winners and sees that 2025 marked by Dembélé. What will remain will not just be the statistic, but the story behind it. The champion who gave thanks, the mentor who validated, the bond that transcended competition. In a sport where vanity often takes center stage, this silent exchange between two figures reminds us that respect can be stronger than any goal. Because in the end, what becomes immortal is not the trophy case filled to the brim, but the image of continuity. The heir who is not afraid to look back, and the master who smiles as he sees his legacy still alive. That is the true lesson and perhaps the true victory of Messi, to prove that you can be eternal not only for what you win, but for what you inspire. And Dembélé, by understanding this at the highest moment of his career, leaves us a lesson worth as much as his Ballon d'Or. That giving thanks is also part of being great. Now the ball is in your court. Do you think this gesture from Messi and Dembélé's response are the definitive proof that the Argentine's legacy goes far beyond titles? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because here we keep telling the stories that make football something bigger than a game.